Thank you so much.
I'm just going to take this over.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Andrea Earl. I'm so happy to be with you today at LAQ's Palooza event. I am currently an instructional coach in Santa Ana Unified School District. Just recently out of the math classroom. I've been teaching math at Mendez Fundamental Intermediate School for the last 20 years. And before that, I taught elementary and 1 year in high school. Not the place for me, but I'm really excited to share with you some of the things that I've done with my students in the classroom. You can follow me on the Digital Teach on Twitter. I'm also a Canvas trainer. So if any of your schools are using Canvas LMS, I have a lot of tutorials and publicize when I'm doing speaking stuff. So if you have questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat, and I don't want anyone lost. If you could start out, please, by letting me know what you teach and where you teach. And just go ahead and pop it in the chat, and that way I can try and tailor some of what we're going to talk about. All right. All right. So in my classroom, I noticed two main problems. The first is how do I get students to talk? Because you ask a question and the same 3 students raise their hand and the same one shouts out the answer all the time, right? Sometimes they're on topic, sometimes they're not, and all the rest of the kids just sit there quietly. The second problem is if I do get every single kid to talk, how do you have time to go around the room? I mean, my classes were 35 to 40 students. How do you listen to every single student? So that forced me to come up with some strategies, and that's what I'm going to share with you today. And I've done these strategies both in person, and right now our district is 100% online. So I've also done them online. All right, oops. All right. In the section today, I'm going to focus on 2 things. One is I'm going to share with you resources where I find good content for kids to talk about, and I'm going to also share the tools that I use. Now, when I plan lessons that promote student voice, you have to be very intentional in your lesson. You have to really think about what it is you want kids to talk about. You have to target the topic, and it needs to be high interest. If you pick something boring, they may talk because you force them to, but it's not going to be very exciting. Also, topics they don't have to have a single correct answer. They could have multiple answers. They could just be opinion questions too. If it's a math question, it can have multiple paths for finding the correct answer. And you have to provide enough time. What I mean by that is you don't want to give the kids 20 minutes for a discussion topic, because they'll talk about other things for the first 18, and then they'll actually talk about the topic. So by enough time, you provide just what you think is the right amount of time for them to get in and get out and be done. All right. These are not meant to be long, drawn out activities. And you find if you give the kids shorter time, they're going to get in faster and get the work done faster. So I use a strategy in my classroom called Hook 'em in 5. And I found this particularly helpful with online learning. If I don't have those kids hooked in the first 5 minutes of class with something interesting, they're going to tune out. They're not going to pay attention to the rest of my lesson. They're not going to care, right? So I want to hook them in 5, and this is how I do it. There are a lot of great websites for finding math talks that are high interest, that align with what you're teaching. And here are some of my favorites. They're all linked. So when I share my slide deck at the end, you'll have all these links and you can explore them at your leisure. But we're going to try a couple today. So the first one, okay, back up a minute. And then how do we listen to them? Obviously, raising your hand and calling on individual students takes forever, and you only get the same ones to talk. And you probably can't tell it about me now, but I was super shy in school. I would never raise my hand. I would only talk if the teacher called on me. Didn't mean I wasn't interested, didn't mean I wasn't engaged, but I was not opening my mouth in front of the whole class. So a lot of these strategies are great for our shyer students, for our English learners who maybe are less confident in their language abilities, and even for kids that just, maybe act like they're not engaged, but they really are. So some of my favorite tools are Socrative, Nearpod, Pear Deck. Quizzes, if you've never used the newer version, they actually have a lesson version where you can work through, multiple slides. It's not just like time quizzes anymore. There's Jamboard and Answer Garden. My favorites actually are Socrative and Nearpod or Pear Deck. And the reason is because there's accountability there. I know who said what, but nobody else knows who said what. So let's go ahead and try this out. We're going to start with Socrative and this math talk, which one doesn't belong? So if you'd be so kind, pull out your phone. You can scan the QR code or go to Socrative.com. You choose the student login and put in the room, Earl 4954. I'll give everybody a minute to do that. Okay. As I'm looking through the chat, I see we have a lot of LAUSD teachers. I am a product of LAUSD, went to Hamilton High School, Palms Junior High, and Castle Heights and Fairburn Elementaries. So I'm a big LA fan. All right, I see people are logging in. So the question I want to ask you is, which one doesn't belong? I see 10 people are in. You can go ahead and start typing in your response. I think you should be able to do that now. And you need to say why. Why doesn't it belong? And you'll notice I don't put like A, B, C, D in the squares, right? So you're going to have to describe which square, which emoji doesn't belong and why. So I'll give everybody about a minute to do that. Now I can see I've got 12 people in, and what I'm going to do right now, actually just hide names. While you're working on this, I am going to show you what the teacher sees. I love Socrative for a couple reasons. And the big one, it took me 10 seconds to set this up. Okay. I can see in the top right hand. Am I still sharing? Uh-oh, where'd it go? Can everybody still see my screen?
Yep,
okay.
You're good.
All right, I lost the border. In the top right hand, I can see I have 13 students logged in. I can see all the answers coming in. If I see anything inappropriate, I can just exit out real quick. And I don't show, students do not see the screen that I'm showing you until later. Okay. I can look at the names and I can see who said what. But again, I'm not going to show the students that. I see I have 11 answers. Oh, only 11 people, 2 people left. Sad. No, it's okay. Now that I see everybody's done, I can now show this screen to my students. And what's really cool is I could say, all right, now you picked which one you thought didn't belong. I want you to read through everybody else's responses and vote for the one that you never even thought of, the idea that never occurred to you. So everyone go look at your device. Don't look at my screen. Look at your device. And now you're going to see everybody's responses. So you're going to vote for the someone that said something you never even thought of. And of course, what you're going to notice, now talking to you as a teacher, some people didn't put their reasoning. So I might need to say, hey, whoever put winking eye, next time you got to tell us why the winking eye, right? But I love how the person who put the kissing face because it isn't smiling, very creative answer, right? So you can give feedback to the kids. Nobody knows who you're talking to except for the kid you're talking to, but you can help build up their skills in their explanations. Now you'll notice I picked something that was non-math related. whenever I start a new skill or tool, and today we're doing two together. The tool is Socrative and the skill is which one doesn't belong. I do it with something that's non-academic, just something totally fun. After they know how to use the tool, then I can take them into, more math related topics. All right, it looks like pretty much everybody's voted, so I'm going to hit finish. Oh, wait. This one. And of course, they just updated since I did it. Okay, then I don't want to finish because I want to ask you another question. But if I look through, I can see, oh, the one with the tongue out doesn't belong because I don't think it radiates love like the others. Very creative, and we can see 18% of you agreed with that. Silly face, all the rest of the faces show an emotion of love. But you can see how you can build discussions, and every kid gets a voice here, and every voice is heard. And some of you'll find some of your shyer kids have the more interesting answers that maybe you wouldn't have expected. All right, let's go on to another one. We're going to use, hang on, oh, wait, let me show you really quick how. So when I'm in Socrative, I want another question, I hit short answer. This will end responses for this question, yep. I could type the answer in, but there's no point. I just want to require student names because I want that accountability. I am going to limit it to one attempt, and I'm going to hit start. And now I can just say, students, look at my screen. This is Mr. Stidell. He actually is a teacher in Tustin Unified, and I want you to estimate his height. But I don't want you just to estimate his height. I want you to know what made you think, what gave you that idea of his height? Okay, what indicators are there that he's the height you think? So go ahead, everybody, go ahead and take a minute and pop in your answers. I am going to hide this for a moment so you don't see. I use the free version of Socrative, yes. If you paid for it, you can upload your class lists and what, but I don't need to. And in this room that I created, I've been using it for like 2 years. I use the same room, so it's always the same code for my students. And I usually have the QR code up for them as well. So if they want to use their phones, and I have kids coming up to the computer, I see them pick up their phone to the computer to do it. But because I require their names, I have accountability. Maybe I'll take a quick little screenshot so I know who answered later. But it's just to kind of get the conversation going. All right, so we have only one person's a couple people have answered. I see them all popping in now. All right, give about 10 more seconds. Sometimes I'll even put a timer up, like 3 minutes, that's it. 2 minutes, that's all the kids need. All right, now we're gonna do a poll again. We're gonna vote again, but this time I want you to vote for who you think is the closest based on their reasoning. So, oh, did I show you how to start the vote? I think I showed you on the last screen. But it's that easy. So go ahead and quickly vote, look through everybody's responses. Okay. And no, it does not read it to them. But I could, on the slide, if I wanted, I could record myself reading it. Or I just read it aloud. Because I do these whole class, during our synchronous time. Another question you might want to ask when you're doing this. Okay, so this, Mr. Stidell's height, this comes from a website called Estimation 180. Oh, it's at the very bottom here, Estimation 180. And this is day 1. And he used to have 180 days. Now he's got, I don't know, like 300 days. But if you go to Estimation 180, the very next slide shows the answer. And then the slide after that shows him with his wife. And you have to compare, now you know how tall he is, and you look at the wife, and then you got to estimate her height. Then the next one is estimating his son's height compared to him. You know, they're next to each other. And then the next one is the daughter's height next to the son. So he really builds on these estimation skills, which we know our students are so bad at. All right, just, did I put the answer behind here? Oh, I can't do that because I did not want to go there. Stop. Okay, he is actually, I believe he's 6'4". There were a couple people that were very, very close. He is 6'4". When I tried to find a picture of me standing next to him, I have one, but I can't find it. The top of my head comes to his shoulder. So he's very tall, but the kids love this. They love this. And as they keep estimating, they get closer and closer. All right, I'm going to go ahead and finish this one off. So I'm going to finish that activity. So if you weren't done, sorry. This is another series that he has, and this is actually days 206 to 210. I did this right before March, right before we went off in March. The first day, they estimated how many cheese balls, cheese puffs, whatever those are, cheese balls would fit on the tray. Then there's how many would fit on the plate down below. Then how many in the bowl, and how many on the small plate, and then how many in the big container. And then I brought in from Walmart a big giant container of cheese balls, and they estimate how many were in my container. Well, at first they were just estimating the same thing because they knew the answer here. But then they started talking and passing the container around and realized the containers were different sizes. I had kids Googling this container to compare it to the one I had brought in. And all of a sudden, all this rich math was going on. And it was all because of cheese balls, right? They were multiplying, they were dividing, they were calculating. I have whiteboard tables in my classroom, or I had whiteboard tables in my classroom. So they were writing all over and crossing stuff out and going across the room. Wait, how did you get that? What did you do there? Where are you? And then my last question was, okay, so I have 160 students. How many cheese balls does each person get? And then you should have seen all the math going on. It was great. It was so much fun. And it was all for cheese balls. But that's the thing. You got to get the kids talking about things that are interesting, that are high interest. In the bottom right-hand corner, is an estimation sheet. When we were in person, I would have the kids fill this out every day. They would do the day number, and this is the day number from the Estimation 180 website. So for this, whoops, sorry, go back. Okay, for this pan, it was day 206. They would have to write a short description just so they knew what they were estimating. But I would have them estimate something they knew was too high and too low, and then make their estimate. So again, they're refining their ideas. So for example, I can't remember how many cheese balls fit here, but if their estimation, they're too high for this plate, should be whatever this number is, right? And they're too low should be, 1. But you'll find that as you do this day after day, their reasoning does crystallize, right? And they start using more cues and more information instead of just being random. Oh, there's a million cheese balls, right? So anyway, super fun, high interest, low prep, which I love. He's got some for Thanksgiving, for Valentine's Day, for all the holidays. So I always do the first, like 10, because they're simple and that gets them in the ideas. But then you're done. If you want to put them on a Google slide, you can. I honestly just bring up the website. That's all I do. I put them on a slide for you because I want all these together. But this is actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days worth of activities on this one slide. So I don't even create slides for them. I just bring up the website. I have them put in Socrative. And maybe I would do in Socrative, I'd first say, put in an estimate is too low. Now put in one that's too high. All right, now put in one you think is right and why. So that's 3 activities, 5 minutes max, right? That's all you're going to spend on that. All right. Other questions about either Socrative or Estimation 180, or which one doesn't belong? There is a very detailed website as well for which one doesn't belong. All right, no questions. All right. If you're trying to log into Socrative, I ended it. So that's why you can't get in. Sorry. All right, here's another one. And we are actually going to use Socrative again. Oh, wait, I should show you this first. I ended this activity totally. And I can go back to my results table. That's not going to help. But it gives me, oh, I forgot to put your names on this one. Okay. But when they sign in with their names would be here. I can export that list and it just tells me who participated. And I can just see that little Susie, while she's been, in the meet all day, she didn't participate. And the next time I can say, hey, Susie, come on, get your answer in. Let's go. Right. So I can encourage. I don't grade these to grade them per se. It's just participation. All right. So let me move this out. And here's another great math talk. What do you notice? What do you wonder? I know they use this a lot in science when they're beginning new science topics, but I love it for math. So I used this for two things. I first asked them, what do you notice? What do you wonder? And then I asked them which one doesn't belong. Two separate questions on the same image. And I did build this one myself. And I built it because we were starting volume of cylinders, right? So as we were talking about what do you notice, what do you wonder? One kid wrote, I wonder how much water it holds. And the kid who didn't know that they were water towers went, oh, that's what they're for, right? But it got us into the discussion of volume. Oh, how can we figure out how much water it holds? And then that led into our whole lesson on volume of cylinders. These types of activities are great because it can introduce a new topic, but it builds on prior knowledge. So what do they know? But it also lets you know what they don't know. One of the kids actually put in, he said in Socrative, he wrote, I don't know what those are called, but they hold water. And so for me, that was like, okay, I know I need to say those are called water towers, right? And someone noticed, the men here. And so someone in Socrative typed in, I think I see something hanging from the water tower. What is that? And then we could have a discussion on the men were probably painting it and hanging from, what's that called? Scaffolding. So by them being able to ask questions, because I don't think the kid that said, I don't know what those are called would ever have done that in a public classroom, right? And said it out loud. Sometimes you have kids that will, but often they won't. So this lets them ask questions to help guide your discussion. And then you can, correct misinformation at the onset. All right, let's go on. Oops, make sure I'm on the right page. All right, would you rather? That's another way to get kids talking. Give them a choice. This one's very math heavy. Would you rather work as a server at restaurant A or B? And they've got to look at all the details. And that's pretty heavy. If they know how to do linear equations, this is kind of where that falls in. So this is, algebra. Although the first time they do it, they won't use algebra. They'll do all sorts of weird stuff. And then you can say, hey, use a little algebra here. Oh, and then they'll maybe draw some lines and figure out which cake. And then National Pizza Day. This is actually a Nearpod lesson. And when I share the deck with you, if you click on it, it'll take you to the Nearpod lesson. You can make your own copy for National Pizza Day. And it has several activities in it, including a would you rather. All right, moving on. Oh, here was one I just found for Valentine's Day. It's a terrible image, but would you rather make enough Valentine's cards for everyone in your class or make enough cards for the number of countries in South America? That's really not math, but it gets them thinking. And when I did this with my students, they were Googling how many countries in South America. Mrs. Earl, how many kids in the class? And I just said nothing. And so then they're counting. And then some kids were going, wait, there's 4 kids at a table. How many tables? And they were counting in different ways. So I didn't have to do anything but find an image. And this led to like 10 minutes of really good discourse. All right. And this one I did do in person last year before we went off. I do have some examples of would you rather based on this question. We were doing distance, rate, time. And this was kind of the intro to it. And so I had the kids record their responses in Flipgrid. So if you've never used Flipgrid, that's another great way for kids to share their thinking. And everybody can hear everyone else's thinking. And now with Flipgrid, they don't have to show their faces. Although my kids definitely, when you watch the videos, this was before the updates, you can see they definitely, hid themselves if they didn't want to show their faces. But you're welcome to look at those later. Okay, so those are getting kids talking. Quick, hook them in 5. But what about for your deeper tasks? Because, sometimes you need more complex tasks, obviously, right? So deeper tasks, I think of the tasks that take more time. They're higher cognitive demand. These tasks generally have a low floor, so low entry level, so all students can access the task, but a higher ceiling so they can take it to a higher level, more complex thinking as they're working through the problem. I think of these as explore, apply, extend when you're dealing with mathematical thinking, okay? Some of my favorite deeper tasks are 3-act math task. Sometimes they're called tasks. 3-act math tasks, and you can just Google it. You'll find a ton of them on all sorts of subjects, but they have a clear introductory part of the lesson, something to hook the kids in right away. Not a lot of words. Something that I like this, that it strikes just the right curiosity bone. You're just thinking about it. Everyone can access it, from your gifted kids to your struggling readers. Everyone can access the task. Then you get into Act 2. That's where they're actually doing some math, right? And they're really looking for solutions to the problem. And by Act 3, you resolve the conflict. Now, down here on the right, I have a link to a spreadsheet. I can't remember if it was Dan Meyer or Kyle Pierce. They both developed a lot of 3-act math tasks, but there's a link to tons of tasks. But I think we should try one. Before we try one, this is where I get mine. Kyle Pierce, this is one. This is a lesson I've always done in class for volume of cylinders, where they take paper and they fold it, and they have to estimate, which way you fold it will hold more beans. And in class, I've always had them fold it, fill it with beans, measure and all that. Well, we were on distance learning. So I was going to make a video of that lesson, and I found one. I mean, Dan Meyer had already done it for me. So, hey, which holds more? Yummy math. Everything's about food. Gotta love food. Tap into teen minds, FET simulations. I like Mathalicious. They have a really good one on the pandemic, how the virus spreads. But you can find tons of these more in-depth tasks. You don't have to create them. And I think that's maybe my main message for you today. You don't have to create them. You just have to share them with your students. And I'm going to share one with you that I actually did create just because I saw this video and I couldn't resist. So, actually I didn't create it. I lied. I adapted it. And that's really important. If you adapt stuff, you give credit to the author. And this author was Kyle Pierce. All right, so Doritos. So now here's the student lesson. Doritos came out with a new chip, and it's super spicy hot. And what they did is they put these new chips in regular bags of chips, and they called it Doritos Roulette. So I want to show you. So we're going to play Doritos Roulette, hot or not. All right, this is in Nearpod. So go ahead and log into Nearpod, please. You can use the QR code, or you can go to join.nearpod.com. And go ahead and log in. And if you've never used Nearpod, it's a great way to keep track of what kids are doing. And I used it before we went on distance learning, so I was definitely at an advantage because my students were already used to it. But again, every student has a voice, even those shy kids, get to talk and participate where they might not in the big classroom. And of course, in the big classroom, they're hang on live. Okay. All right, so the code is, make sure the code's right. Yep, the code is right. That's it, resume, got it. All right, and then I'll show you what it looks like from the teacher end as well. So if you'd be so kind as to log in. All right. And when you're playing with students, just like Megan popped the link in the chat, I do that with my students online, or I post it. We use Canvas, and I would post it in Canvas. But sometimes I would just post it online. You can also just bring up this Nearpod screen where it shows the code and the kids can see it. But for you, when you start a lesson, you just grab the code here, just grab the link. If you use Google Classroom, you can send it out with Remind, Microsoft Teams, just sharing the codes. So let's see, how many students are in right now? Uh-oh. Uh-oh, you're on the wrong slide. Sorry. What did I do?
I was wondering why we were on Flipgrid.
I know, I'm like, oops, because I went through it last night to make sure everything was still working. Sorry. All right, so I see a whole lot of people are in. Now we're gonna start. I did do this teacher pace so that you stay with me. All right, so here's the lesson. Doritos Roulette, hot or not? So we're gonna start. What do you notice? What do you wonder? So go ahead and take a minute and you can write your answers.
Perfect. Yeah.
This should be a.
Got a problem with that. I need two.
I don't see the place to respond.
Yeah, I'm like, wait a minute, where'd it go? What happened?
Maybe you
it's
gotta do it as a draw it. It has to be a draw it.
It's a draw. This is a draw it. I thought. You know what? Oh, open the white. No. Okay, obviously I did something wrong here. Oh, maybe I meant not to do this with you because we already did that. All right, let's go on to the next part. So yeah, I would have the kids, what do you notice, what do you wonder, and let them write. The next thing I'm gonna do though is show you a video, and I am gonna have you play it for yourselves. At least with distance learning, I do find that to be better. So go ahead and take a minute and watch the video.
Pretty good. How are you doing? I have no idea what almost one shot in Isaiah when nothing's
Sam.
Isaiah.
Sam, stop talking. All right, I'm just going to bring this screen up here so you can see what I'm seeing. And I can see right now that there are 16 people logged into the lesson. Now, when I look at the participant list, I see 20 people in the class. So I know that I'm one, and I know there's 3 people not signed in. So I can keep track of that for later if I want to, talk to those students that aren't participating. All right, so this is a Collaborate board. Okay. No, I don't want to approve your comments. So think about the video. What do you notice? What do you wonder about the video? About what you saw in the video? With students, I do have the moderate on, but you're adults. So go ahead and take a minute. What do you notice? What do you wonder? Go ahead and pop your answer in there. And now you'll notice this video it's not math related at all, is it? It's just kind of fun. All right. And I can set a timer here. I do love the timer in Nearpod. I should have done that just to demonstrate it. But I like the timer because it keeps kids on task, right? All right. So Yeah, and I would go, yeah, Sheila's absolutely right. They took turns taking a chip from the bag, and if they chickened out, they turned into a free animal. Why they didn't all turn into chickens, I don't know, but that's what I wonder. All right, moving on. So now let's get into the math a bit. And I use this to introduce a probability unit. What information do you need to solve this problem? So go ahead and you can draw on the slides. I wonder if, can you write on this slide?
No.
I don't think so.
All right, you know what? They updated Nearpod and I did not update this lesson. I do apologize. So I would have the kids write on their slides some things they need to know. What do they need to know to solve the problem? And the kids will, again, say things like how many chips are in the bag, how much does the bag weigh, because you know you can't see it very clearly here. How many chips are hot in the bag. They might ask how big is the bag, how much does it weigh, right? So they're going to come up with all those questions. And again, because every kid is writing on their own slide, they're getting the information. All right. Oh, wait a minute. I guess I did. Sorry. Maybe I did this as a fill in the blank. Go ahead and that's right. You get the idea. Let's move on. All right. Oops. Here's the next video. Students play. Go ahead and. So now we're going to watch the next video and oh, it's not going to stop, is it, when I go back to the beginning? There we go. All right. Go ahead and watch the video. It should stop at points. I don't know if Nearpod fixed that, but go ahead and take a minute and just watch and we'll see if it works. I know, but Megan, are you going to try the bag of roulette? So Patty, did it stop for you? Is it, oh good, it is stopping. Oh, good, they fixed that. So what I did is I added stopping points in the video, and you can do this with any video in Nearpod now. It's a new feature, it's pretty cool. Kind of like Edpuzzle, but you don't have to go to Edpuzzle to do it. And I can see how much of the video you watch. So basically the kids are estimating, right? How many. All right, in the next one, I want you to, based on the video, based on what you saw, you're going to determine the probability of randomly selecting a hot chip. And again, all the kids are showing their work. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, so we're gonna move on. But you get the idea. If you've never used Nearpod, you can come back and play with this. I'll leave it open. Then there's other things you can do with it. How about the cost per ounce, right? You could do all sorts of math problems with it. This was an article. You could have the kids read the article and annotate the article about the releasing of the Doritos. Apparently it was only in Canada. I tried to get a bag last summer and I couldn't get one shipped here. They were all out. And then to conclude the lesson, I asked the question, if I was able to buy a bag of Doritos Roulette chips, would you try one? And so the kids can watch the video and post their responses. And if you'd like to post a response later for fun, feel free. These are like previous adult students that did it just for fun. So anyway, I will leave this open if you just want to play with it as a student, but we're going to go ahead and continue on. Are there any questions about a 3-act math task? Oops. Let me show you another one. There's more. I mean, there's all these questions you could ask. And this is, these questions actually came from my students. I asked them, what other math questions could we ask about this topic, about Doritos roulette chips? And they came up with these questions. So you can read them later for fun. Some other good, so oops, go back. There we go. Oh, I keep trying to grab the corner here, make this bigger. There you go. I also love this one. Let me see if you can hear this. This is perfect for the holidays.
Okay, let's see if you can hear this.
The time is heading your way. Not just yellow. It's just not easy without those crazy peaks.
All right, so this comes from Yummy Math, and Yummy Math has worksheets that come with
their lessons, and they're all obviously based on food. So, oops, keep going back. So every Easter time, every spring, I do this lesson. It's amazing how many kids have never tasted Peeps. But they can calculate based on the information given in the activity provided by Yummy Math. They can come with a pretty good calculation of how many Peeps are sold at Easter. And I always do this lesson right after Easter. So then I go to like CVS and I buy them for 75% off, and then I can get every kid one. The kids were really disappointed this year. They didn't get to have any, but hey. But here's the link to that lesson. Mathalicious has a lot of really good lessons. They're not laid out quite as well. I mean, honestly, the Peeps lesson, the Yummy Math, it's a worksheet. You could follow all the directions and just put it into a Nearpod or put it into a Pear Deck, or just do it however you want. Mathalicious takes a little more work to kind of put it into the format you want to share it in. But the questions are all there that you want to share.
Hey,
Oh, I
Andrea?
think this is my Peeps lesson here. Yeah.
Well, there's a couple questions, if
Go
you don't
ahead.
mind me just asking about Nearpod in particular. If are you
Yes.
using the free version when you're doing things with students?
That when I created that lesson, we were still on the free version. Our district does pay for the premium now. Yeah.
Okay. And then a couple people asking how it actually directly came to me. Do you have any thoughts on
Okay.
how you can convince a district to pay for a Nearpod license? Like what kind of argument could you use? Obviously, you've found great ways to use it.
Well, if there's a whole Nearpod Pear Deck discussion, debate. They're good for different things. But what I would say is it's especially if you're distance learning, right? Or hybrid or half and half, it's hard to see what the kids are actually doing. And Nearpod lets you see exactly what they're doing. You can see them solving problems in math, right? You see them working out solutions. You can see if they're on task. You can see they're following. You can include, videos for them to refer back to later. And that's just what I tell them. Maybe find a sample lesson and show, the powers that be. If you're looking between Pear Deck and Nearpod, the differences, Nearpod has a lot more built-in features like the videos. So if you've ever used Edpuzzle, it's a video and you put little stops and ask questions along the way. Nearpod has that built in. Nearpod has a little quiz feature, actually 2 quiz features built in. And they also have like a matching activity built in. I'll be honest, I don't really need all that stuff. Because both platforms, you can build your slides in Google Slides or in PowerPoint, and then you Nearpodize them. Basically, it's a Google add-on. Or if you're in Pear Deck, there's a Pear Deck add-on. I kind of like the Pear Deck, just the whole way it works better, because I don't need all that extra stuff. But if you don't have Edpuzzle or, well, see, for the quizzes, I use Quizzes, that website. So it just depends. I would kind of look at price. But our district went with Nearpod. Nearpod has some really cool lessons for language arts and for ESL and ELD and social emotional. Their math lessons, I don't think are that great, the pre-created ones. They do have an add-on, which is Flocabulary, which is fabulous for vocabulary for any subject you want to teach. But I would create a lesson and show the powers that be, how you can watch every student work. I think that's the power of Nearpod, or Pear Deck. Because otherwise, in the classroom, you're walking around, right? You're spot checking I would do, 10,000 steps in a day, walking around, checking, spot checking, correcting, and you can't do that virtually unless you can actually see what they're writing. And having them do work on paper and take a snapshot is not good enough. So that's my 2 cents. All right, other questions? And yeah, the free version of Nearpod is just less storage space. So what you'd have to do is you have to, archive lessons, which you do not have to do with Pear Deck. Pear Deck, it's all saved in your Google Drive. So really you have pretty much unlimited space. But the paid version of Pear Deck does give you additional features. So there you go. All right. So last year at the end of the year, I at the end of our equations unit, our linear equations unit, I would always give the kids a project, and I'd give them like 5 prompts, and they could respond to them however they wanted. And basically it was, you've got a story and you have to have a visual representation. You have to have the equation, a table, and slope, y-intercept, explain your thinking. So this year, since we were online, I still gave them the 5 choices. And I said, I don't care how you show it to me any way you want. And of course, earlier in the year, we'd already done Flipgrid several times. We'd already made videos several times. We'd done physical posters, several times. So I just, we'd made Google Slides. So they already had all those skills. I said, do whatever you want. And so this is kind of a smattering of what they did. So you can kind of get an idea. And by listening to the kids, and this was my exam, by the way, for linear equations. There was not a written exam. This was it. And I could totally tell right away who understood and who didn't. So when you're talking about, competency, right, or mastery, it's very, very clear who mastered the concepts, who was close, who was approaching, and who was clueless. So I love doing assessments. I see online all the time, how do I stop my students from cheating on the math test? Don't give them a math test they can cheat on. They can't cheat on this. And even if they do cheat, maybe ask an older brother or sister for help. They still have to explain their thinking. And if there's someone else in the house teaches them how to do it, and then they can explain it back to me, I'm happy, right? So anyway, all right. So some of my favorite tools for screen recording, I love Screencastify. It's a Chrome extension. It's free. It saves it right in their Google Drive, and it's got like a 3-minute time limit, so they're not going on and on and on. Again, Nearpod, Flipgrid, Pear Deck. I do also like, someone asked if the slide would read to them, and the answer is no, but you can hack it by using this extension called Record to Slides. And what that lets you do is record your voice on top of the slide. I've also had students do that. They've recorded themselves explaining something on their slide. It's great. I use a lot of Google Docs. As I said, we're Canvas, so Canvas means we can, import Google Docs, and every kid gets a copy, just like Google Classroom, Schoology, same thing. So this was a PhET simulation. If you've never used PhET, got to check it out. Really cool simulations. This one was this graph here, and they had to play with these points. And the idea was I gave them directions. They had to create a line with a positive slope and a positive y-intercept, a negative slope and a positive y-intercept, a negative slope and a negative y-intercept. And then they had to take screenshots and write the equations. Wow, right away, I found out a lot of my kids did not understand that a -2 over -3 was a positive slope. Even though they could see visually it was a positive slope, they wrote negative. They thought it was negative because it was a negative number in the fraction. But it was a great way for me to see their thinking, and they could play with it. And so one of the kids, I'm like, hey, take your pink dot, move it down. See what happens when you move it down. Everybody move your pink dot down. Now this, you cannot see everybody working at the same time, which is why I had to do screenshots. But they got to play with it, and they got to learn. And one of the kids, as they were working on it, he goes, hey, Mrs. Earl, is that why a negative divided by a negative equals a positive? And I'm like, yeah, So by the kids playing with stuff, they're going to understand the concepts better. I mean, don't just, I learned math, memorize the formula and just do it. Never understood the concepts behind it. And I think it's so important, and things like this help. Yeah, someone said Desmos. I love Desmos. And Desmos come a long way in the actually since summer. It's amazing for kids to play and explore and experiment. And that's another tool that you can see their thinking, because you can see them working. I mean, that's a whole different session, right? That would be an hour by itself, just talking about Desmos. But you can see the kids working, and you can see where they are, where they're stuck, and you can find their misconceptions and correct them right away. I mean, nothing worse than doing a page of 30 math problems. Turns out they're all wrong because you just didn't understand one little thing. I know, because that was me as an algebra student. I want to get rid of all that, right? I want to take the stress out of math. I want kids to have fun with math. All right, how are we doing? Oh, we're out of time. So the last thing I want to say is feedback. And that's the whole purpose of student voice, getting the kids to talk, even if it's online, even if it's digitally, but in the moment with Socrative and Nearpod, Desmos, because you can give them timely feedback. Okay. Here's some other things, all these link to stuff, and you can play with it later if you use Canvas. I'm sorry, go back, keep bumping stuff. Not if you use Google, you can do the editing and all that. It's great. And these are all linked. This is from CPM. I totally love this. How do you feel about the problem? And I totally get it. I'm completely confused or somewhere in the middle. It gives me so much information about the kids. I love it. All right. And there's a link to my slides. Again, my name is Andrea Earl. I talk really fast. I'm sorry. But I hope you got a little bit out of my session today. Obviously, I'm passionate about math, passionate about kids, and want to get those kids talking. Any questions?
I love the Dorito stuff. I think that if I had a math teacher that would have like made that really real life applicable thing for me, it would have made a huge difference. So I just love that.
Well, the funny thing is, I never liked math. By the time I hit algebra, I actually loved geometry, but I hated algebra. It made no sense to me. Memorizing those formulas, and I didn't get it. But when I became an elementary teacher, I took a program for elementary teachers to teach math. And all of a sudden we were cutting up circles and measuring and completing the square, using manipulatives, and all these concepts that I'd memorized all of a sudden made total sense to me. And that's when I switched and became a math teacher, because I wanted other kids to have that joy and understand math, right? And not have it be drudgery of, completing a worksheet with 30 problems, because that's just a waste of time.
Totally.
Anyway.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for joining us.